Welcome back to Wellness Tips with Dr. Park. Today we're going to be talking about a philosophy that I've developed over the years of doing dentistry and living life, frankly. I use the Bible to light my path, and it is what I form all of my ideas from. And the reason I do that is because, as the Bible says in Genesis 1, we are created in God's image. And we're created with DNA. DNA is the language of God, and it is the hardware of our frame. And our frame is influenced by a whole bunch of things. And we're going to talk about those influences today. Some of the influences are good and some are not so good. And while our frame, our DNA, our hardware was created by God, it's been messed up by man over the years. And that's what Genesis 3 is all about. And talking about how man chose a different path. And so often man does. So today we're going to talk about the different environmental influences, biological influences, structural influences, psychological influences. All these are epigenetic things that modify the outcome of our existence. Epigenetics is the software or the modifier of the hardware, which is our DNA that God created. As I mentioned, there are several influences, and they start with our birth. And those are structural influences. And the structural influences create cranial strains. So even as the baby is coming down the birth canal, if the baby sits in the birth canal too long, and I've talked about this in a previous video about cranial strains, but the baby's head gets squeezed and then it comes back out, and sometimes it can create strained situations that make things off balance. If you really look closely at my face, I have a cranial strain. My left side is out further than my right side, and one eye is slightly higher than the other, even though I've been working on that. So those are things that can be influenced by our birth. And then even before birth, the nutrition of the mother and all these things affect the baby and how the baby grows and develops. That's why diet plays such an important role in the health and life of the mother and the baby. So nutrition, that even happens before birth. But anyways, at birth, these cranial strains modify things. So that's a structural issue. Some of the other factors that would be biological are environmental toxins. And we know so much more about environmental toxins than we ever have before. Plastics, glyphosate, heavy metal toxins like mercury and lead, and many, many other different things that cause harm to our body. Antibiotic usage, while it's created by man and it's created to kill bad bacteria, it has a harmful effect because it kills good bacteria. And from your first exposure to antibiotics, as a child, as an infant, as an adult, whenever it may be, it destroys one key bacteria that you never get back, as stated by Dr. William Davis, MD, in his latest book. Then there are psychological factors that influence us. There's stress, and that takes you down a bad path. So stress takes you down a bad path and alters the brain pathways, alters things that happen in the body, alters our healing, creates inflammation. And then there are good psychological factors. And those good ones are actually prescribed in the Bible. There's a verse in Proverbs that says, "A joyful heart is good medicine, but a broken spirit dries up the bones." And then there's the verse in Philippians that talks about it's God's prescription for right thinking. Think on things that are pure, lovely, excellent, praiseworthy, of good report. All those things influence our mind, and that trickles down throughout the body. So all of these influences, environmental, biological, psychological, create new formed habits They can be good habits or they can be bad habits. The good habits are helpful and fruitful and grow the body in the right way. The bad habits are detrimental, destroying, diminishing, and harm the body in various ways. And as I talked about epigenetics, one thing that I think is important to remember, there's good epigenetics that change things to a good path, and there's bad epigenetics, things that alter the body's development in a bad path. Because of the fall of man, we as humans have had to come up with our own solutions to problems. That's where modern medicine came from. Hippocrates was looked upon as the father of modern medicine, and what a lot of medicine is based upon. First, do no harm. But I think sometimes medicine and dentistry and many other fields have imposed our own will on the human frame, and that has come with good results and bad results. If you break a bone, you have to go to the doctor or the hospital for them to set the bone and fix it. If you're in a car accident or if you're injured, you have to be stitched up and healed. Or if you have a tongue tie, that may have to be addressed so that epigenetically you don't head down a bad path. Doesn't always result that way, but sometimes it can. So in future videos, I'm going to discuss how all of these factors, biological, structural, environmental, psychological, only to name a few, have affected our development and the outcomes of our lives. And we're going to talk about how some of those things can be addressed in a positive way to make a difference. Thank you for watching this video, and I hope you found it informative, helpful, and maybe directive for how to live a healthy life. And if you did, like, comment, and subscribe for more great content.